In movies, the military is usually seen as pretty useless, completely unprepared, and is usually just as much of an antagonist as the zombie threat itself. But did you know that the US military actually has a publicly available plan in the event of a zombie apocalypse? Its name is CONPLAN 8888. Contingency Plan, or CONPLAN 8888-11, also known by the name the Counter-Zombie Dominance Plan, is the United States military's published doctrine for how the military would actually operate in an event like this. In summary, these are the 5 phases the US military would take in the event of a zombie apocalypse. Phase 0, shape the environment. The first phase is all about monitoring disease vectors that could cause zombieism, as well as advising other sectors of the intelligence community on the emerging zombie threat. This is a step that most definitely happens in real life, just not specifically about zombieism. Phase 1, deter. The document acknowledges that the zombie threat would not be possible to deter, but zombie-inducing forces would be possible to. It specifically points to nations and terrorist groups with WMD programs and unethical bio-research companies as potential threats and lays out training plans, including zombie awareness training and CBRN/hazmat training. Phase 2, seize the initiative. First, they would establish and maintain defensive positions. This is a step often depicted in movies, such as the military bases in World War Z and the Crazies. The plan for this would be to recall all troops, including the National Guard, to their duty stations and fortify all US military duty stations immediately. Troops would be made ready to deploy for at least 35 days, and other nations would be immediately reached out to so that they do not see this mass-scale mobilization as preparation for war. Phase 3, dominate. All duty stations will be basically turned into fortresses. Troops will be authorized to shoot any non-humans on sight, and the plan specifically states that zombie corpses will be burnt. It also mentions that air and missile strikes will be taken against large infection centers. A good example of this step in media would be the firebombing of Atlanta in The Walking Dead. Each of these fortified positions will be completely locked down for 40 days at the minimum. During this time, special operations units will help conduct operations with local authorities to protect civilian populations, but they will not be allowed access to the bases during this lockdown period. Phase 4 is the reconnaissance phase. After at least 40 days have passed, the 4th phase of the plan states that forces will start taking local reconnaissance operations to figure out the severity of the threat around each of these defensive locations, as well as to figure out the status of basic services like water, power, sewage, etc. It also specifically states that reports of these recon missions will be sent back in clear text on unsecured comms, so that if any survivors are listening, they can link up with these recon forces and be brought back to the bases. Phase 5, offensive operations. There's no set time frame for when Phase 4 turns into Phase 5, but Phase 5 is where the military will begin large-scale offensive operations against zombie positions, using all available capabilities to include nuclear weapons. This is also where the main military force will have hopefully regained contact with surviving civil services and will help them with render-safe operations, which is another word for going through and clearing up entire towns on a large scale. This is likely to be the most dangerous phase and where the highest amount of casualties are expected. After Phase 5 is complete, the focus shifts to normalization, where the military will begin to help remaining civil authorities to rebuild and recover infrastructure and services for the civilian population. The plan also talks about quite a few different types of zombies that the plan prepares for. These include pathogenic zombies, like think viruses, bacteria, and fungi. Radiation zombies from electromagnetic or particle radiation, and I'm not making this up, evil magic zombies created via, quote, some form of occult experimentation in what might otherwise be referred to as evil magic. Space zombies, zombie life forms coming from space or some kind of alien disease, weaponized zombies, bioengineered zombies, or diseases for the purpose of being used as a weapon. The plan explicitly states the film The Crazies was their basis for this one. Symbiont-induced zombies, basically parasites that take over the bodies of the victim. Vegetarian zombies, zombies that don't pose any threat to humans because they only eat plants, but the plan specifically says that these are still viewed as a threat due to massive ecological destruction. And this last one, I swear to God, I'm not making this shit up. Chicken zombies? Apparently the only class of zombie to actually exist, which I had never heard of till now. Possible video on that another time. Now you're probably thinking that this whole thing was just some Pentagon April Fool's joke, but the very front page of the document actually says otherwise. The plan was released in 2011 by US STRATCOM, US Strategic Command, as a way to help commanders practice thinking outside of the box of typical conventional warfighting. Interestingly, the document also says that they decided on a zombie apocalypse scenario because if the document were to be leaked, it wouldn't cause public outcry because people would hopefully realize that it wasn't an event that would actually happen. It also mentions that it was just fun, which is kind of funny to hear from the DoD. I think that it's fairly interesting that even in this publicly available document, the DoD doesn't really make any plans to help the general public for the first 40 days. 40 days! That's a long time in a zombie apocalypse, man. The plan is laid out in the same way that regular US STRATCOM concept plan documents are laid out, with a stated purpose of preserving non-zombie humans from the threats posed by a zombie horde. It also says that the military would conduct operations in support of any human population, even including traditional adversaries such as Russia and China. The plan goes a little more in depth into the specifics of the buildup of this kind of situation, and also goes through the most crucial elements for determining the success of this kind of plan for each of the holdouts. Specifically, access to a good source of power and water, but also medical infrastructure in the surrounding area, as well as the size of local police departments, specifically because it's acknowledged that if human populations aren't protected, the threat will only get worse and worse.